No walls, no locked door, no motion light flicking on if something moves nearby. Just the ground under your back, the last orange glow of a dying fire, and the sound of something moving through grass you cannot see. For most of the time, your species has existed. This was not a camping trip. This was simply where you slept, night after night, for roughly 300,000 years. And somehow, almost every single morning, you woke up. That fact alone should bother you more than it does. A sleeping human is slow, soft, and completely unaware. No claws, no armor, no night vision. By any normal predator logic, an unconscious primate lying flat on open ground should be the easiest meal in the entire ecosystem. Lions were there. Leopards were there. Hyenas, wolves, and saber-toothed cats were there for most of that history too. So why, across hundreds of thousands of nights, did the math so rarely work out in their favor? The answer isn't one clever trick. It's a stack of separate, independently evolved defenses that happen to line up. And once you see all of them together, the picture gets unsettling in a completely different direction than you'd expect. Start with how predators actually see you. Not the you sleeping under canvas, but the you as a species. In 2017, ecologist Justine Smith and her colleagues at the University of California, Santa Cruz, ran an experiment on wild mountain lions, also called pumas or cougars. Whenever a puma made a kill and came back to feed on it, hidden speakers at the site played one of two sounds: the harmless, neutral call of Pacific tree frogs, or a recording of an ordinary person talking. The frogs changed nothing. The human voice changed everything. The pumas fled more often, took far longer to come back, and when they finally did return, they ate less than half of what they normally would. 17 different mountain lions, dozens of trials. The same result, over and over. These are animals fully capable of killing an adult deer in seconds. They chose to abandon a meal they had already caught rather than stay near the sound of your voice. Smith's team called this the fear of the human super predator, and it isn't unique to pumas. African lions move differently through regions with heavier human presence. Tigers in parts of India give villages a wide berth even when those villages sit in the middle of perfectly good habitat. This fear didn't appear overnight. It's the surviving residue of roughly 2 million years of being actively hunted by your own ancestors. The large predators that treated humans as just another meal got killed disproportionately, generation after generation. The ones that learned caution survived to pass that caution down. What you're hearing in a predator's hesitation tonight is the inherited memory of every ancestor of that animal that didn't take the bet. So the species-level reputation helps. But reputation alone wouldn't be enough if you were actually as defenseless asleep as you feel. This is where the second piece comes in, and it's something most people have never heard of. In 2017, anthropologist David Sampson and colleagues studied the sleep of Hadza hunter-gatherers in Tanzania, a population that still sleeps outdoors, in the open, without solid walls between them and the surrounding bush, using small wrist devices called actigraphs, instruments that track movement and light exposure to estimate when someone is asleep or awake. The researchers monitored whole camps through full nights. What they found, published in Proceedings of the Royal Society B, was that at almost any given moment during the night, at least one person in the group was already awake or drifting through light sleep. Nobody assigned this. There was no schedule, no guard duty, no agreement around the fire about who watches first. It simply fell out of the fact that people don't all fall asleep, wake, or cycle through light and deep sleep at exactly the same times. Stack enough individual sleep rhythms together, slightly offset from one another, and you get something that functions exactly like a rotating night watch, without anyone ever deciding to build one. Sampson calls this the sentinel hypothesis of human sleep. Your ancestors weren't betting everything on one person staying alert all night. They were betting on the group, on the simple statistical near certainty that out of a dozen plus sleeping bodies, Somebody's brain was always, almost by accident, paying enough attention to notice if the night sounds changed. Now add the third layer, the one your ancestors discovered before farming, before pottery, before almost anything else you'd call civilization: fire. Fear of fire isn't something animals learn from bad experience. It shows up in creatures that have never encountered flame in their lives, which tells researchers it's wired in at a much deeper level than memory. Harvard biological anthropologist Richard Wrangham has argued that this near-universal fear of fire is exactly what allowed your ancestors to abandon the trees. Most primates sleep up in branches specifically because height is one of the only reliable defenses against ground predators. So what would make a primate give up that height advantage on purpose? Somewhere around 1 to 2 million years ago, your lineage started sleeping flat on open ground, something that's almost unthinkable for an unprotected primate, unless that primate had found something that scared off predators even more reliably than a tree did. Wrangham's argument, laid out in his book Catching Fire, is that controlled flame became that something. A fire kept burning at the edge of camp wasn't only warmth, it was a standing signal, broadcast into the dark, that something here controls a force every land animal is instinctively built to avoid. There's a fourth piece too, and it has nothing to do with fear or fire. It's just geometry. Predators that hunt large animals rarely target the center of a group. They target the edge, the isolated one, the straggler that's drifted a little too far from everyone else. This is true of wolves working a herd of elk, and it's true of any predator sizing up a sleeping camp. A single person asleep alone, away from a fire, away from other bodies, breaks every rule the camp's defenses depend on. The fear of the human super predator still applies to that person. The sentinel effect of overlapping sleep cycles does not, because there's no group left to generate one. Which might explain why, across cultures with no contact with each other, the instinct to sleep close together at night shows up again and again. It isn't sentimentality. It's the geometry of risk, solved the same way by people who never met. Put all three pieces together and you get the actual scene. Bodies close together, not spread out, because a separated sleeper is an easy target in a way a group almost never is. Smoke drifting low over the camp. A bed of embers kept glowing at the perimeter, just bright enough to mark a boundary. Sleep that's lighter and more fragmented than you'd expect, cycling everyone in and out of alertness at slightly different times through the night. And ringing the whole camp, an invisible boundary made of inherited fear, built up over roughly 2 million years of large animals learning, the hard way, that this particular species was never worth the risk. Here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. That boundary is not permanent. It has to be actively maintained, and it can collapse shockingly fast. Almost every well-documented case of large predators repeatedly killing humans follows the same underlying pattern. The 2 lions that killed railway workers near Tsavo, Kenya, in 1898 were not typical healthy members of their species behaving normally. Naturalists who studied the remains later noted the animals were maneless and showed signs of dental damage that likely made normal prey harder to catch. The Champawat tiger, which killed hundreds of people across India and Nepal in the early 20th century, before the naturalist Jim Corbett tracked and ended it, had been shot in the jaw years earlier, shattering teeth it needed to hunt deer and wild boar. In case after case, the inherited fear didn't fail because the fear itself was wrong. It failed because injury, habitat loss, or hunger had already broken the normal cost-benefit calculation a healthy predator makes. And in places today where animals are regularly fed by tourists or grow used to harmless contact with people, that same caution can erode within a single generation. Lose the fear, and the protection built over 2 million years goes with it. Which brings the whole thing back to you, lying wherever you happen to be reading or listening to this right now. You still carry the version of sleep your ancestors needed. Light, easily interrupted, quick to flag an unfamiliar sound over a familiar one, even when the unfamiliar sound is just a pipe knocking in an apartment wall. That's not a flaw in your sleep system. It's the same sentinel architecture David Sampson found in the Hadza, still quietly running in your own nervous system, even in a bedroom with a locked door, a phone on the nightstand, and nothing more dangerous outside than a raccoon. It's why a hotel room never lets you sleep as deeply as your own bed on the first night. It's why new parents startle awake at a baby monitor's static before the baby even cries. It's also, probably, why a house full of family always feels easier to sleep in than an empty one, even with the same locks on the same doors. Why does a system built for lions and leopards still fire on a creaking floorboard 2 million years later? Because the system was never told the lions left. So no, there's still no wall, no lock, no alarm system standing between you and a sleeping body that any predator on the savannah would, in theory, find delicious. There never really was one. What's standing there instead is 2 million years of your species teaching every large animal on the planet a single very expensive lesson, that you, specifically, were never worth the bet.